Should you make a broken character?
Now, we're by no means suggesting that you gimp your character or go against the stats so that way your character is unusable. No, we're talking more about character flaws.
Now, when we say that, what we mean is something that makes your character less than uber. I know you're playing a game where you want to be a hero in Dungeons and Dragons, but heroes have flaws too, okay? Every single one of them does. I think to every Marvel movie, every superhero movie you've ever seen, they all have a flaw, something that keeps them from being the absolute perfection.
And it's not necessarily part of their stats, but more part of their personality.
Yes.
What is their internal turmoil? What is their conflict? What is their motivation? What is their weaknesses personality-wise? If you focus on that aspect, you might find that your character is far more enjoyable to play.
Oh yeah, because you know what the least interesting type of character is? The one that can do everything. The one that fixes everything every single time. The one that opens every lock. The one that fixes every trap. The one that beats every boss. The one that can cast every spell. They're the most boring characters ever. You know what I want? I want somebody that they usually can do the good thing, and every once in a while, they screw it up so bad.
And if you think about it, the way D&D is created is so that no character can be the all-encompassing character. And this is really important and very good for you to understand before you start playing D&D. Because you want your character to focus and be the best they can at this thing, allowing other people in your party to focus on what they can do and be the best that they can be.
That's important. She just said party. In D&D, you're not playing a solo game. You're playing a game with other people, usually friends of yours that you like, hopefully, or that you're going to like someday, or that will become friends of yours. So you're not an island. You don't have to be able to do everything. Depend on each other. You're all the heroes in your own story, and that's a really important thing to understand. A lot of us come from single-player video games where we have to win. We have to beat that thing. We're the only one there. All these other extras, they're just extras and NPCs, and they don't mean a thing.
But that's not what D&D is about.
No, D&D is a collective story.
D&D is about role play and what your character would do. So you're probably asking us right now, well, how the heck am I going to know what my other character, my other party members are going to be doing? And that's a good side note to this conversation. And that's where we really emphasize talking with your DM, talking with your other party members, and perhaps implementing a level 0 campaign. This is where you can flesh out your backstory, your connections, what each person's place is going to be in this group, what your expectations are, and what the DM's expectations are. If everybody is on the same page before you even get started, you will find gameplay to be so much more enjoyable.
She's absolutely right. However, I want to throw something else in. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having the session 0 is an important thing, okay? Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with no one knowing what anyone else is playing, because there's no such thing as the perfect party anymore. I don't believe that. And building the relationships in-game through roleplay and being there for each other.
We are currently in a game right now that is a perfect example of this. Brian's character and another player, Paul's character, are built nearly identical, but they're going
we didn't even know.
Completely different routes. So you would never know in interactions with them and the role play
let's just tell them
that they're the same build.
I'm playing less than good, she's not good aligned, Aasimar, right now she's 3 Paladin, 2 Warlock. He's playing a goody two-shoes Tiefling that's 3 Warlock, 2 Paladin. Hexblades, of course. And it's really interesting to see how different these characters are because of their beliefs and their flaws, if you want to call it that. My character has some serious issues with being enslaved, with being told what to do even, with controlling others. So certain spells she'll just never take for roleplay reasons, like command. She probably will never use that. Charm person.
She is the rebel without the cause. Contrast to that, the Tiefling was raised within the church community, so he's been brought up to be better than what his perceptions of himself are. So he is more noble, more righteous in his belief in his path.
And I know what you're thinking. Why would a Tiefling and an Aasimar ever travel together? Well, they didn't want to. But, you know, sometimes the enemy of my enemy becomes someone that you build trust with. And that's part of the story-making part of D&D. If the flaws weren't there, we'd just go, yeah, whatever, and we'll just go on and it's all good. And that's where you end up with stories like, oh yeah, we're all level 20s after a month and we killed Tiamat and 15 clones of Tiamat all in the same campaign. Oh, come on. Was that really fun? It might be fun once. It might be fun early on in D&D, but as you really start getting into it and you want these campaigns to last more than 3 or 4 sessions, if you can make it that long, it's really important for your character to be interesting, more than just the numbers. That's why this channel is called D&D Beyond the Roll, because we mean to go beyond what the dice say and be something, but let those dice and help to form what your character is. In other words, if you put 8 in charisma, guess what? You're not going to be a leader type. You're not going to be someone that really can carry the party and be the face. And if you happen to be the highest charisma in your party, well, then I guess you have to do that, but you're not going to be very successful at it. And I think that's important. Too many times people say, oh, this is a dump stat. Well, yeah, if it's a dump stat, play it that way. For instance, my character that we were just talking about, Alane, she has an 8 strength. She can't lift anything. She barely can hold her sword and shield. She does not do anything requiring strength to do. She's also not very dexterous. But man, is she pretty. She's got a 19 charisma. So she can talk anybody into anything. And she's also got a high constitution. I did that because she's had a rough life, okay? She's got some scars. She's built it up.
So when we talk about character flaws, we're not encouraging you to create a situation where you simply can't play the game.
Right.
Please don't do that to yourself. For example, if you know ahead of time that this campaign is going to be based entirely on ships, everything is on ships, all the battle is water-based.
Don't make somebody afraid of ships.
Thank you. Don't do that. That's
also,
just wrong.
This is the first rule. If you want to ruin a campaign, and I mean, it'll never even get off the ground, do not play a D&D character that doesn't want to be an adventurer.
Yeah.
To me, those things just take away the whole point of the game.
The caveat to both of those statements of don't ever do this is you can start off that way with the intention, with the knowledge, with the purpose that your character is going to change and hopefully change rather quickly. If they allow within the gameplay for situations to come like the person that can't swim or is afraid of ships says, hey, I can't swim or I'm afraid of the water, somebody help me. If there's a druid on board, maybe they can show them the positive aspects of water. Maybe they can teach them how to swim and make them more comfortable.
Or just turn into a dolphin and
setting.
distract them and then they won't care.
Perhaps the person that's not willing to adventure and slay wild beasts may have an event occur to them where they're like, you know what? I need to go forth and conquer these demons for the good of myself and for the good of my community. And that way they'll have motivation to go forth and do those things that they weren't willing to do initially.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. There's too many times where the temptation to make this super exotic backstory and very complicated and things like that, and you get into the game and now you have to live up to that. In other words, your character probably was not the king of some sovereign land who is descended from gods as a level 1. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to start that way. Most of my backstories when I make characters are actually pretty simple. They're somebody that maybe some wrong was done to them, or maybe they just had a perfectly good life and they were just like, this is boring. I want something different. And that's where it comes from. But even that can create an interesting flaw. Now we have a naive person. They grew up on a farm. They don't know anything about the city. They don't know anything about dungeons. They don't know anything about the real world. So play that into the character.
Naivety is a really great character flaw because when you come up across an unknown source, you'll be like, oh, look, it's spiky and cute. Let's talk to it. While everybody else is like, oh,
what are you doing?
And you know, you just go down like it, and it bites you. Well, hey, that's because that's a monster, and that's what monsters do. But because you're naive, you didn't know how to react that way. And that might be cute, that might be lethal, but as long as you're willing to pay the consequences of that situation, you may find that your character to be more endearing to you in roleplay.
One thing that's really important to understand about D&D, and you probably know this already if you're watching this video and you've watched any videos or learned anything about D&D, is there's no such thing as winning. There's no such thing as losing. Because here's the thing, worst case scenario, your whole party gets wiped out. You make new characters and you continue on. Maybe in that campaign, maybe in another campaign. But the story lives on, because ultimately that's what this is all about, is that story that you're all creating together. It is not the DM versus the players, it's the DM and the players. The DM is merely helping the players to work through some of the things that they don't make the decision for themselves. The DM is essentially the omniscient observer, giving you the eyes and ears. They are like in the Breakfast Club. I am the eyes and the ears of this institution, my friend. They tell you what you see and experience, and by using the skills and the numbers on your sheet, you can help to learn what you learn and how you interpret those things. Adding a flaw means you might misinterpret something. I tend to make low wisdom characters on purpose because I'm horrible at directions. And I don't even mean a little, I mean horrible at directions.
It's true.
So I like making characters that someone says, oh, yeah, it's really easy to find that hobgoblin cave. You just go up the road 3 miles, make a left, go west 6 miles, and walk 40 feet, jump in a hole, and there you go. And my character will go, wait, I missed that last part. The part after you said how far up the road?
Walks the opposite direction.
And I love that. Does the party like it? Not always, but it's fun and it makes it interesting. But I will allow that character to learn and grow as time goes on too. So you might start out as a naive little farm boy, but by the end, you might be some hugely champion, folklore, almost godlike warrior. But you had to start somewhere. If you started out as the godlike warrior, where do you go? It makes the game a little bit less interesting.
If you have a character flaw that you've implemented in your gameplay, please put it in the comments below and share with our other viewers.
And as always, may the rolls ever be in your favor.
Bye-bye.